What is the fucking point of coaching? That wasn't quite the question that was asked me on Instagram, but that's how I'm paraphrasing it. Now, the question I got on Instagram was more related to what are the benefits of coaching versus going it alone? And that's obviously a good question and something that I'm more than happy to answer. Now, I would put this in the context of basically look at other people in the sports world and outside of that as well. So think Usain Bolt, think Michael Phelps, think even Luke fucking Skywalker. What's the thing that they have in common? Well, they didn't go it alone. Usain Bolt didn't become the world's fastest man on his own. He had a coach. Michael Phelps didn't become a multi-Olympic gold medalist on his own. He had a coach. Luke Skywalker didn't fucking become a Jedi and save the galaxy on his own. He had a coach. Now, he was a little green motherfucker, but he had a little coach. And that's the sort of thing that you kind of need to think about, is that whether you've got an expert in the chosen sport or you've got a little green fella in some sort of swamp in some far distant galaxy, they all succeeded in part because they had a guide, someone to give them the plan, the blueprint, and teach them the skills that they needed to achieve that goal that they wanted to achieve. And to me, that's the role of the coach, because we're not born with skills and knowledge. You don't pop out of the womb with all of the skills that you need to achieve whatever goal it is you want to achieve in life. You don't have all of the knowledge that you need in order to do whatever it is that you want to do. These are all things that you acquire over time. And more often than not, you're learning them from other people through various different means. So for example, people listening to podcasts, watching videos, looking at content on social media are learning stuff. They're learning knowledge. They're acquiring skills that helps them to achieve their goal. That's part of the process. Now, because you're not necessarily born with all this sort of stuff, you've got to think about, well, what's the best way to acquire that information? And it might be the case that right now you might believe that you don't, might not get to the stage where you can lose fat, build muscle, and achieve the body you've been looking for. Now, you might be in that stage where you kind of have all of this self-doubt. Like, can I do it? I don't know how to do it. It's all too fucking confusing. What do I eat? How much do I eat? When do I eat? What do I train? When do I train? When do I train my training program? How do I make sure I'm doing the right fucking exercises? All of this sort of shit. That leads to lots of frustration, lots of overwhelm, confusion, all of that sort of stuff, and a lot of self-doubt. Now, that can be the death sentence of any good fitness journey. But you've got to pull yourself back to think, the greatest sportsmen in the world probably were at that situation where they didn't fucking have a clue what they needed to do in order to improve, in order to take the next step. Luke Skywalker didn't fucking know how to use a lightsaber until fucking Yoda taught him. He didn't know how to use the Force until Yoda pulled a fucking X-Wing out of the swamp. You got to always think about that sort of thing, is that the way you want to get to is a journey. It sounds very cheesy, very cliche, but it is. It is a path. You're acquiring skills, you're acquiring knowledge along the way to achieving that goal. So there's nothing abnormal about the fact that you might not feel like you know exactly what you need to do. You're the hero of the story. You are the Luke Skywalker, the Princess Leia, the Katniss Everdeen, or whatever the fucking name was in that Hunger Games movie. Never seen it. You just need the guide, like freaking Frodo and Gandalf. You need that guide. And that to me is where a good coach comes in, because the coach shouldn't be the person who is the hero in your story. The coach should be the guide, the person that gives you the plan, the roadmap, the path through to where you want to be, and teach you and give you the skills that you need in order to be successful. So they're like this bridge between where you are now and where you want to get to. And with any coach, what I think you're buying is speed. You're buying speed between the two. Yes, you could sit and you could learn about nutrition, you could learn about training, and I would encourage you to do that sort of thing. But maybe someone with you coaching you through the process is going to speed that journey up. But in my opinion, Most coaching relationships fall at the first hurdle. And the first hurdle is that there's a misunderstanding of what the actual goal is. Now, you might think that your goal is to get a six pack, let's say, or build some muscle, get some glutes, or whatever the goal is in your head. But that's not the final end point. That's just part of the journey. Now, most coaching relationships, in my opinion, fall short because that's where they see the end. All right, you've got your six pack or you build some muscle, that's it, on your way. Whereas actually what your end goal is to get that result, but also acquire the knowledge to maintain it. Because no one wants to achieve something and then it all just falls to shit. So that's where for me is that's only half the job. Education and providing knowledge and providing the sustainability is really what the goal is. And that's where you get the skills from the coach. So from a coach's perspective, if you wanted to come back to the original question, which was what are the benefits, you'd say you get the support, the guidance, the accountability. So I've written these down. That's why I'm looking down here. Encouragement, motivation. You got that clearly defined plan to the goal. That's what you want. You want to be able to see, like, what is it going to take? How am I going to get there? Now it feels realistic. Now I feel like I've got something tangible. I can I can see it. I can see it's no longer I'm just wandering in the wilderness aimlessly trying to fucking manage my way through this forest of bullshit. I've now got a clear path through. We've got the fucking steamroller out and we've got a clear path through right to where we want to get to. And the education along the way is going to help you sustain that. So when I work with a client, we go through a 4-step process. Now, a 4-step process is wrapped up in something called the Lean Life Method. If you've never heard of that, go check it out. Link in the show notes. But there's 4 stages to that. The first stage is know. The second stage, and that's KNOW, not as in yes and no. Optimize, achieve, and educate. So what happens there is in the know stage, that's about me finding more about you. I've got to find out what makes you tick. How am I going to coach you best? What motivates you? What's your goal? We go into a lot of detail about what your goal is to try and figure out what it is that I need to help you with. Where are the gaps? What do you need my assistance with the most? Etc, etc, etc. Then we look to optimize. So that might be optimizing your training program. It might be optimizing your nutrition to make sure that it works seamlessly for you. So optimum for you might be completely different to what's optimal for somebody else, but it's going to be uniquely to you. Then we set about achieving. That's doing the actual heavy lifting. That's doing the work to get you to the goal. That's the achieve bit. Then we're going to be talking about, or the education kind of side of things actually just runs along constantly. So over the course of like the first 12 weeks that I work with a client, I would be talking them through a set of different habits. For example, I want them to get to the end of 12 weeks where they know enough to be able to maintain their results long into the future. So we go through a whole education process and so on and so forth. So my goal is to be the fitness Yoda, the Obi-Wan Branobi, if you will. Now, sometimes I always think it's good to look at something in terms of if you're trying to figure out what the benefits are of something, look at what life would be like without it. So we use our Luke Skywalker example. So if he didn't have an Obi-Wan or a Yoda to guide him through that whole process, what would life have looked like for Luke? Well, he would have probably been bumming around Tatooine, moaning about his burned up relatives. Probably that's all he was going to fucking do. He wouldn't have fucking gone on a little mission and all sorts of crazy shit. Wouldn't have done any of that. Where would Usain Bolt be without his running coach? Yeah, he probably had a natural ability to run fast, but would he have been a world record holder? Would he have won so many gold medals? Maybe, maybe not. Who knows? Michael Phelps, would he have won all of those Olympic golds? Probably not. Probably still been a good swimmer, but he may have just bummed around and kind of sacked it off because he didn't really kind of have a real plan of where to go. So you have to kind of ask yourself is, what it is you want to achieve? And in your situation, in your mind, does a coach give you what you need in order to get you to your goal? That's kind of where I would be thinking about the whole coaching process. But to me, I've used coaches in business context to help accelerate. I can sit and learn various different bits and pieces about building a business. Happily do that. But I know if I have someone to teach me, I will go faster. Someone who's been there and done it and got results for other people, yes, that accelerates the process. And you've got to decide if that's right for you. It's not right for everybody, but it is right for some. So that was my answer to the question. The benefits of coaching. You get a fucking Yoda.